Okay. My article was titled A Ceiling Effect in Traditional Classroom Foreign Language Instruction, Data from Russia. The author was Benjamin Rifkin, and it was published in the Modern Language Journal in 2005. A quick summary of the content. A group of researchers set out to prove that the acquisition of listening, reading, speaking, and writing proficiency shows a significant correlation not only with hours of classroom instruction in immersion and non-immersion settings, but also with grammatical competence, which was something that was interesting for me, something that I didn't really necessarily know would show such a strong correlation in the other skill areas. The article also suggests, based on the data, that there is a ceiling effect, as the title would indicate, in traditional classroom foreign language instruction. It basically starts out with that there's a growing demand, a greater demand with every year for a more competent foreign language speaking society, especially in the globalized world and here in the United States. And they focused on certain studies back in the early 2000s that showed that on average, university students in their fourth year of language instruction were still not at the advanced stage, or the majority were not. And given the fact that access to input is improving in the U.S. year by year, and access to input just means, how easily you can see authentic text, hear native speakers, study in immersion settings, or even study abroad. The area of focus was Middlebury Russian School, which is a very successful immersion school teaching Russian, which is categorized as a more difficult language to learn than Spanish or even English. It's a very successful school. Like I said, they have 4 hours of class, 5 days a week for 9 weeks for those that are involved in the program. And they decided to take a pool of students from this school. They're almost 50-50 male-female, and they categorize them accordingly depending on how much exposure they already had with the language. So, what I'd say was the biggest find for me in the article, and something that not only instructors at the school attribute to the great success, but also the researchers and the people involved with the writing of the article, was that all students sign a language contract. I'm going to have more on that later in terms of the application all of this research has for my classroom. So, over the study of the test, 5 different tests showed that there was a great correlation between skills and also grammatical context, like I've said. The second part of the study, which set out to answer the question if immersion offers a richer basis for the acquisition of language. And it indicated that the average scores between two groups of immersion and traditional differed in some instances by 30 points, and the scale for that's a little bit difficult to explain if you don't have the article in front of you, but it's a significant difference. Kind of what that might look like hour-wise or instructional-wise. 600 hours gets you basically to intermediate high in proficiency in a traditional language classroom, a traditional classroom setting, while 400 to 450 hours in an immersion classroom can get you to an advanced level of proficiency, which is pretty crazy in my opinion. Okay, so application. How did I see this research, the information that I gained from this article, applying to my students and in my classroom? First and foremost, immersion is difficult to implement in its nature. Our students have all their other subjects. We only get them for 50 minutes a day. Some of us maybe 90, some of us maybe even less than 50. So in its nature, immersion is tough to do, because a truly immersive experience is interacting in the language, interacting in the content, whatever it may be, the entire time, or the vast majority of the time. Another thing to consider is that immersion isn't everything. So the article, which was very interesting to read, suggests that there is also a ceiling effect for those that learn a language naturally, such as if you were to do the Peace Corps service, for example. There is a ceiling effect for those that learn from the naturalist way. So that gives us all hope. As I mentioned earlier, the students at the Middlebury School signed a language contract, or a language pledge. This is something we can all do, and it helps to hold students accountable. So next year, I can definitely see myself implementing a language contract that would have policy, very strict rules, very set guidelines for what I expect from the different levels of my Spanish courses. I mean, the students at the Middlebury School faced expulsion if they were to go outside of the content language, which I thought was pretty intense, but also makes it what it is, which is one of the most successful language schools in the country. A lot of this is very vague in terms of the application, but since immersion does produce these higher levels of proficiency, I think I can definitely offer immersion type settings in multiple ways. So offering Spanish only events, Spanish language only events. So these could be something as simple as roundtable discussions on a topic that's going on, or a pop culture topic, or a world news event. It could even be a popcorn party. It could be Spanish speed dating. Anything that would have the students interacting only in the target language for a set amount of time. And again, that language pledge would come into play for that. Another thing that the article showed that I should really implement more and apply more to my craft and my teaching is that the most important thing to do in the limited time that we have is to create the interest in the language in some respect. That is to say that the students graduate from high school and they still want to continue learning the language. I know that's for me why I'm here right now teaching it. It wasn't because I mastered it in high school. It was because I learned enough about a culture, enough about a part of Spanish that made me want to keep studying it and keep learning about it. So I think I have room definitely to apply more of a cultural focus or more of cultural goals, entire projects or units based solely on a culture or a way of life where students are going to have to find aspects of that culture that interest them and things that they might want to explore even more outside of the classroom. And I also think I need to have more of a stress on the transient skills language acquisition gives to a person. Countless research shows, not to mention the article, that study skills improve, strategies are built for reading and listening, and also it lets the student learn more about their own native language a little bit better, and also helps to form their own cultural identity as you are learning about different cultures and different ways of life. Finally, language classes help a lot with public speaking skills, which everyone knows is the number one fear. And having someone speak in front of a group in a language other than their native tongue is pretty courageous and creates quite a bit of skills. Lastly, as far as application goes, it falls along the same lines as encouraging my students to do domestic immersion programs or any sort of domestic immersion opportunities. And where I teach is a primarily Hispanic neighborhood, and so that offers a lot of different chances to go out into the community to immerse ourselves in the language without having to go around the globe or to another place. So that's what I got out of the article. Plenty for me to get to work on. Thanks.